I want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm a 5-year MLA. First 4.9 years as a Wild Rose, now as a United Conservative Party member. And as Sheila said, I'm currently the energy critic, was the health critic after the 2015 election. Married 30 years, father of 3 boys, business person, farmer and a rancher. I ranch in Saskatchewan and I ranch in Alberta. 3 things in terms of the busyness in my office, my constituency office, and my time in politics will be top of my memory for a long time. First of all, Bill 36, the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, the attack on our property rights, and the number of people that brought out. Then Bill 6, the attack on our way of life, the removal of choice, the removal of freedom, and all the people that brought out. And here we are again, dealing with this paper, this federal change, where as many inquiries as the carbon tax into my office has arrived. When the federal finance critic, Pierre Poulivar and Glenn Motz had this kind of meeting in Medicine Hat about 10 days ago, I estimate over 300 people out, very, very concerned. And I ask myself, how did this happen? Where are we at? What brought us to this point? 2 things, I think. First of all, a prime minister, a finance minister, and a federal cabinet that have completely forgotten how Canada was built, how rural Canada especially was built, and how rural Alberta was built. Business people, farmers and ranchers, creating wealth, paying taxes, helping each other, making it so the next generation would have a better life and a better chance. And then when I hear, as Corey just explained, a 73% tax potentially when you pass a dedicated, very husbandry taken care of asset to a family member at non-arm's length, I'm absolutely astounded that any tax regime could think that that was equitable or fair. And I wonder how they think. And in my 5 years of politics, I've had the great pleasure to consult and talk to a lot of Albertans. And from time to time, I used to hear a phrase, people would say, taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. Heard it a few times, so I thought, where does that come from? So I Googled it. It was said in 1927 by an American judge, Oliver Wendell Holmes. And when in 1927 in his court decision, he put the taxes are the price we pay for civilization, taxes were 3.5%, and Tax Freedom Day was January 20th. The Fraser Institute has just put out that taxes now take 45% of the average family's income, more than the 3 essentials, food, clothing, and shelter combined. I like to joke that Tax Freedom Day is Halloween, but I think it's close to July 1st, meaning that we all spend half of our time working for a government. And these massive tax grabs on entrepreneurship, on family values, and the opportunity to make our communities and our families stronger are just hit home when you hear the recent examples of how these governments waste money. We could talk about a $30 billion federal tax, or federal deficit rather, 11 to $17 billion provincial deficit, whether we want to count infrastructure spending or not. But you know what's easiest to remember? A $500,000 holiday in the Caribbean over Christmas. Jerry and your government spent $600 doing a cover on the budget. I'm hearing that our federal Liberals just spent $212,000 on a cover of a book, of a budget. Save us money, thank you. 3 Alberta Health Service people just took a cab to Medicine Hat from Calgary. The government's crowing that they saved money because they all could have taken their own cab instead of sharing a cab that cost us, the taxpayers, $720. Could have rented a car for 30 or 40 bucks. Friends, the story goes on and on. And to me, this is a perfect example of elites entitled that don't know or have completely forgotten how hard that some people have worked to create wealth, to pay taxes, to give to charities so we can make our communities stronger for everyone. And that's why I'm so pleased to see Sheila and Holly working so hard, to see so many of you out here today, to make it so Minister Morneau and Prime Minister Trudeau and every Liberal in Canada knows that this question this decision is very, very questionable, and they will pay the price for it. You know, I want to talk a little bit about that. I joined the Wild Rose 5 years ago because of the fiscal responsibility and because of our commitment to free votes. We've had some trouble with that at times, but we have worked hard to keep free votes. Let's also not forget that one brave Liberal MP, I think from New Brunswick, stood up to say that this was wrong and he was against it. His reward was being removed from 2 committees, which I'm not sure, but I believe that affects his pay. Obviously will be a career possibly changing thing. Friends, that is not accountable democracy. That is not the way our parents and our grandparents built Canada and built Alberta. And that is why political change, both provincially and federally, is so necessary. Did you guys follow the news about the other squirrel or shiny object out there right now? The revenue agency decided that possibly they should tax employee discounts. Are you kidding me? Where is this going to end? You know, to put in the time and the effort to tax an employee discount? Are we going to start taxing holiday days off with gratuitous from the owner? Like, where does this end? Where does this direction towards big government end? All the more reason that we need to fight for what I call the 5 principles that I started fighting for the Wild Rose on. First of all, limited government. Every time we get an opportunity, let's attend meetings like this. Let's talk about the fact that we are perfectly willing to give to charities, to give to community groups. Let's enhance our ability to give to community groups and charities so we can take care of our families and our friends better. Let's make it so government knows its bounds so our families and our communities can be stronger. Local decision making is another one. The more and more centralization I see, the further we get to where effectiveness becomes important. Next is equity and fairness. And that's where I want to briefly touch on the 3 things that I understand that this legislation will hit on the most. Sprinkling income to spouses and children, higher taxes on passive income, and the capital gain. As I stated at the start, my wife and I are in business. We're in ranching, some home construction. We have people that look after us for that now. And in all honesty, principally, it was my direction. But every single time we go to the bank, and then the lawyer, my dear wife sits down and signs a personal guarantee. Now this government is telling her she's not entitled or equal to share in the benefits of the hard work, but she has all the risk. How unfair is that? And as I mentioned earlier, if I understand this correctly, if you sell your farm, your ranch, or your small business and the shares of it to somebody at arm's length, somebody you don't know or you don't have a relationship with, taxes are 50%. The way it's structured, if you sell it to somebody you do have an arm's length relationship with, your daughter, your son, your nephew, your niece, you can pay up to 73% tax. How in the right mind could anybody possibly think that that's equitable or fair? And with the passive income, the opportunity that risk takers like farmers and ranchers, risk takers like you in the room that through small business have created wealth and created income and paid taxes. We don't have the big pensions that some public servants have. We don't have that opportunity. We were also denied by Trudeau and Morneau the opportunity to have a greater opportunity to invest in tax-free savings accounts, to catch up to some of that pension. And here they are again, at the expense of hardworking entrepreneurs, at the expense of people that create jobs and build wealth, slapping equity and fairness where it doesn't belong to be. I want to talk about unintended consequences. My accountant told me about 3 or 4 weeks ago that up until Rachel Notley raised our 10% flat tax to 15%, and Justin Trudeau raised our federal income tax, I think to 33% is now the maximum. Basically, so in Alberta, our maximum tax rate is now 48%. He said in the past, very seldom or not too often would he have a farmer, rancher, business person come in and want to really talk about moving their money out of Alberta and out of Canada and doing in-depth tax planning. His words to me were, since Notley and Trudeau, every couple days somebody phones or knocks on his door and says, make my taxes more efficient. And the proof of how that's backfired, the unintended consequences, last year's Alberta budget, even though rates were higher on corporations, rates were higher on individuals, rates were higher on our risk-taking, hard-working oil and gas companies, every single total tax volume fell. Higher rates meant less money across the board. You know, I thought of a story on the way up as to, I just can't understand where Trudeau, Morneau, and the Liberals are coming from. And I thought of the story, and maybe some of you have heard it, about the guy in the three-piece suit with the cufflinks driving the Porsche about 15 miles outside of Red Deer and got totally lost. So he stopped by a farmer's field who was just closing a gate for letting his cattle in. He said, boy, I'm lost. Can you tell me how to get to Red Deer? Rancher said, no problem. I'm just going to finish closing up my gate and I'll tell you how to get there. And the guy said, hey, and if you don't mind, while I'm here, if I can tell you exactly how many cows are in your field, will you give me one of them? I said, sure. Guy pulls out his phone, shoots it up to the GPS, all comes back, and he looks at him and says, 496. Rancher says, holy smokes, you got it exactly right. I have 496. The guy that was lost says, okay, I'll take that one. And the rancher says, you know, that was really impressive how you were able to do that and use your GPS and figure that out. But before I give you the directions to Red Deer, would you mind putting my dog down? People don't understand. They don't understand what it takes to build wealth. They don't understand what it takes to every day be involved in making our families and our communities stronger. So I close with, we're on the edge now of where we have the opportunity for some political change. We're hearing about some mayors. Mayor of Calgary being challenged by somebody who's more fiscally conservative. In the United Conservative Party, we have worked very, very hard to put two parties together that don't always think the same and do have some work to do there. But I see some faces I recognize, so please let me thank each and every one of you for your hard work in that. And for the first time since the federal election, we're showing the Conservatives tied in the polls with the Liberals. And we're also showing the potential for change in Ontario with an election coming up next June. And as Corey alluded to, I understand there's a meeting Morneau is having with all of his federal Liberals, the caucus, on Monday to discuss these changes. So please, each and everyone here, stay involved. Let our Prime Minister let our Premier know that yes, we're here to help all Albertans. We're here to help all Canadians. But that comes by building wealth, creating jobs, and being allowed the opportunity for each and everyone's family to grow to their maximum potential. And these federal changes are not it, and they are against equality and fairness. So thank you all again.